actually, is that Ralph Road? Is that spelled correctly? Okay. Oh, right. Councillor Donaldson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, on page 68, the commentary on capital works program by exception, final bullet point, the requirement now by regional council that the thermal water from the footpools at Kuarawa Park now has to go through the wastewater treatment plant. So do we know what the volume of that is, and how is that going to impact on our consent level and nutrient removal, etc.? What impact does that have on the volumes that we've got to accommodate there? Because I just think it's not like it's really paru water, is it?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, the issue of geothermal water being discharged into the sewer has been quite a big issue over the years. There is a fair bit of it. This is only a small part of it, in actual fact. So we did think about this at the time that this first came up, and considered it, and the decision was made to accept it into the sewer. But however, the geothermal input into the sewer overall, throughout the district, throughout the urban district, is quite important to us, and we're carrying out further and further investigations into that all the time. It does represent a part of our wastewater stream, yes.
So supplementary, Madam Chair. So Andy, do we make that point in our consent application to Regional Council? Because geothermal water is high in nitrogen, I'm told, and so they're imposing more geothermal water going through the plant, which impacts on the limits on our consent.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we will make it as part of our consent application. We've already raised it with the water quality program as well, and asked them to consider that part of the waste, the inlet stream, if you like.
Just wanted to give Rob a bouquet. Went up to visit the Mamaku youth space, and the community told me that it hasn't been trashed, hasn't been vandalised, which I think is fantastic. And what a lovely space. The school said there's high use, and they feel they own it, which is really great. So you don't get many bouquets, but that's a good story when we know other areas do get trashed. So if you can pass that on to the team. And the drinking fountain? No, that's right, the drinking fountain's gone. It went the same day. Yes. Okay, I still haven't gotten over that. Waru.
Kia ora, just a point of clarification, just on the about who grants resource consents for the Rotorua Lakes Council. Just wanted to clarify.
It depends on the nature of the application. So if it's an application, so the regional council grants some for where it's under their mandate, but if it's, and that's around freshwater take, geothermal, sewage outfalls, that type of thing. So we apply to them. Where it's an element which is under us, such as a new building,
That's what I'm
development, we do. Okay, so it goes down, ask the question around compliance with the plan. If it needs to go down the track of notification, then we would typically appoint an external commissioner to hear that rather than internal.
Thank you, Dave.
Councillor Gould.
Page 59 CBD, this morning 2 trees were cut down in Tanakai Street near the City Focus. I take it the City Focus is going to be improved next week, or parts of it going to be taken out. Am I correct in thinking that?
JP, as I understand it, yes, there is with the major project not going ahead, there's some localised work which is going to make minor improvements to the place as opposed to the full contract, and that's, so JP?
That's correct. If you recall, Portia signalled, and we signalled at the last meeting, that we would be doing the removal of the remaining big pillars, the fans we call them, but also the wood and lighting would go on to the poles that are there. And the last aspect of it is the work around the quest and that improvements to the Hope Upper Street area there. Oh, sorry, Hannemeier Street.
Into that, the school holidays start on Friday. Does that still mean part of the city focus will be people will be able to walk through or use it?
Understanding is the work that's going to be done is localised. We're not looking to close it. But for safety purposes, there will be areas around for public safety where people are working. There will be barriers to stop you getting there, but the city focus won't be closed.
Basinyo Tuli.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Just pointing to page 73, the safe and sanitary. There's a lot of misunderstanding out in the community about this. And I guess, is it possible that Te Tātou could host a workshop to explain the current situation with safe and sanitary?
More than comfortable that we'd support that and provide officers to make the explanations in terms of that. Not a problem at all. Yep. That would be very good, thank you.
I would say that possibly a lot of the wider community don't understand that either.
Yeah, and as we talked about whenever we talked about this, the main ones to understand really is through the Real Estate Institute, because they're advising the buyers and the sellers, and the solicitors and the banks. Right, because as if you recall, the main thing that was driving this was not so much the people believing they needed it, but potentially getting advice from the bank, the solicitor. Yeah, and so some of the advisors know about it and aren't raising it, but it isn't necessarily clearly out. We are working through getting that message clearly out into bankers and lawyers.
I'll let Councillor Sturt with his real estate hand raised.
Chair, good news for Rotorua. I sound like Paula Bennett in Parliament. The good news for Rotorua is last month 197 properties sold, which is up from 62 2 years ago. The other thing is, with regarding to the safe and sanitary reports, I attended a meeting with 3 agents from every company Thursday week ago, where Daryl Holder held a symposium on the safe and sanitary reports. They've spoken to the people who deliver the builders' reports. Safe and sanitary reports, if I can just allude to you, have no legal standing, no legal obligation on council to administer them or adhere to them. The thing that I found out at the symposium was that lawyers would say, oh, my client isn't going to buy that property because he hasn't got a permit, so get a safe and sanitary report. What Daryl was saying, and he went round and canvassed all local authorities, he's done a huge job, is that the builder's report should be robust enough to illustrate where the issues are. And the confusion is, Potoa, the confusion is what is a complying activity and what is exempt. So at the symposium, we got a copy of the presentation, the Builders Act 2004, plus all the properties that, plus all the activities that retrospectively can't get a permit. They've got to go and get a code of acceptance. Safe and sanitary was a cheap way that the industry, lawyers and builders report people, devised to circumvent the need for a code of acceptance. Has no legal status and has no obligation on the council. We're a robust builders report, but a code of acceptance, that's the legislative framework that council must abide by. So, yep. Well, it is, but so many people do dodgy stuff, and they come to sell their house and they say, oh, I didn't know. Well, tough. Pay.
I think a key thing in the mix of that is actually something the builder's report will pick up.
Exactly.
Right? Because actually it comes down to at the time, is it dodgy? Because over the years, we've got to remember that we've got properties here that were houses probably built 100 years ago. Right now, a house built 100 years ago is probably very unlikely to have needed a consent, and certainly it wouldn't have needed a consent consistent with the 2004 Act. So in the mix of it, there's been so many changes over the decades, and I think it's there now. So certain things that did require a consent now no longer do, and certain things that didn't now do. So it's actually been such a moving footprint. And so the big emphasis really is for people to rely on the condition of the property now based on advice from an inspection that's been done by a qualified person looking at the property as it sits now.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, everyone's happy with Mr. Foster's report up to the end of 73? All right, so now we will, well, thank you very much for all of that and good comprehensive report, and we'll now move into confidential. Excuse me. Oh, yes, if you'd like me to, I could. I'll just have a look.
And the reasons
Okay.
why.
Oh, all right. I might have missed that. Yeah, okay. I'll just go to the front of my agenda.
Page 10, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. So we are now going into public excluded session to, what are we doing?
Discuss
The last minutes. We've got to confirm the last minutes, which included Tanawha Springs water supply, a strategic property purchase, and we're also going in to discuss what else are we doing? The East Lake subdivision update and pensioner housing investment. That's a mistake, because we've already done that. That was already in public.
Consider those financials that we saw this morning. That was just an overview.
Oh, right. Well, I don't...
I missed that.
on
Had-
page...
I thought we were going to see the correct financials
Okay.
for the whole Crankworks exercise. What
Okay.
we saw this morning was just a brief overview without costs,
Without
revenue,
comprehensive...
ticket sales, etc. So
Okay.
I honestly thought that was going to be in
To be
this.
fair, Madam Chair, we're not
No.
privy to the private accounts.
Just a minute, excuse me, can we not have arguing
Frank,
across the table through the chair, one at a time, please? The reality is that I understood that sentence in there was a mistake. It says Thomas Colley will present a financial update on Crankworks. I will ask Councillor Donaldson to let us know. And so I was told that shouldn't have been in there, that it was just the financials that were given to us today, and I didn't think that it was our business to see the whole picture. I thought it was only to do with
We're
what
part
we've
of the
provided.
shareholders.
Previous years, last year, we did see the actual financials, the proper layout of all the financials, the
Okay.
income, the expenses,
It's
etc.
not our business.
I'll ask Councillor Donaldson to clarify. But just a minute, so are we going into confidential first? I want to go, I've explained why we're going, so I'm going to put the motion to the vote.
Before you do, Madam Chair, could I just clarify that in response to the Rangawewahi... Sorry? In response to the Rangawewahi item, we were going to get feedback from the Chief Executive as to what legal advice he'd received.
Okay, all right. So you've highlighted that, all right?
Can we hear from Dave?
As to why we're not seeing the financials for Crankworks before we go into confidential. Okay, that's fine, yep.
So my understanding, Madam Chair, is that we were reporting back on the end of year position, which is as we did this morning, not on the full budget for Crankworks, which the board is happy to share with the Chief Executive, Councillor Sturt and Mayor Chadwick, who have been delegated the administration of the underwrite. Happy to do that. There are a couple of things about the Crankworks financials that I would be happy to update the council on in confidential. But look, I'm in the hands of the Chief Executive and Council as to whether a full report on the entire budget comes back to another meeting, but I don't have that material available today. It's all, all the financials are managed by our accounting team. Yep.
As I mentioned, when I saw here that Thomas was going to give us an overview of the financials, I expected to see the full layout, as we did a year ago, over a year ago. And I expected to see the budget that we assessed. The income, for example, was, I think from memory, you indicated, Dave, that you would endeavour to repay the $96,000 cost from this year, and that clearly hasn't happened. So I think because Council has committed $280,000 worth of ratepayer funds, I think it's appropriate that we should have that opportunity, as has happened previously, to see the breakdown. Simple as that.
Madam Chair. Yeah, Madam Chair, reporting back that we should get is we are 49% shareholders in a holding company of which we funded, which was detailed this morning in answer to Councillor Kent's question on the cash funding and the underwrite. The ins and outs and dollars and revenue and expenses of Crankworks Limited has got nothing to do with this council. What we did was on a basis of community good and development, which was reported back this morning, we gave an undertaking to underwrite it to a certain level for 3 years. They came back and reported to us today, not in confidential, out in public session, that the underwrite this year cost us $39,000. Last year it was $75,000.
We need to repeat that because we all know what we got this morning. I think the question here is, do we as a council want to see the financials, and is it appropriate? And I do take Councillor McVicker's point on board that it was misleading having that sentence there because it led us to not ask those questions earlier in the presentation. So that is the point here. And I guess we as a council have to decide if we collectively think in the future we should ask the Crankworks to provide that to us. Is it appropriate? But it would have to be a majority. And a
what
majority.
Does confidential mean?
Councillor Sturt, just please let me
Select the
finish.
next morning.
Councillor Sturt, can you let me finish, please? Thank you. It has to be a majority of decision of this council that we think that would be appropriate. So, and certainly there's no haste over it. We just have to decide what we want to do. Jeff, would you like to make a comment as to a way forward on this?
So councillors, you have already made the decision with respect to the underwrite. So that's a decision that's already been made. And at the same time, there has also been decisions made with regard to event support and so on. What you've had presented back to you today is the information that you need to know as to how the event is actually operated and the potential draw on the underwrite level. Now, at the end of the day, that is the key information. If you, however, required, for some reason, a detailed financial breakdown from the Crankworks organisation, that is something as a funder you may wish to actually request from the organisation. Bearing in mind, of course, that it is not our decision making as to the nature of the various budgets that go to make that event up, and we really don't and should not try and influence the way that event is operationalised or organised, and the way that they've established their financial structures will be based on the back of the strategy that they've used for the event. So the most relevant aspect is obviously, so what impact does this have for Rotorua, and what impact does it does it have for our council at a financial level that directly impacts on us? And that information is what you've actually been provided with.
Got Councillor Kent, then Donaldson, then Her Worship.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a 49% shareholder in an organisation that we've contributed $283,000 to, I believe we have a right to see the figures. Yes, they should be held in confidential because they are commercially sensitive, but we should be seeing these figures if we are being responsible.
Okay, Councillor Donaldson.
Madam Chair, I was just going to declare an interest again and step away and not participate in the debate. I'm in your hands.
Thank you. Worship.
There's a signatory. I've got no problem with that request, but I'm not sure the use of the information other than to look as if we are protecting the level of investment that the Rotorua ratepayers are putting into the event. I'd be happy to accept it in confidentiality. There are some issues that I am interested in, and that's the level of sponsorship actually from Air New Zealand, and has that increased year on year? So there are that sort of aspect that I think we need to know in terms of a tourism destination. So I've got no problem with that, but I'm not sure that we'd spend a lot of time pouring through it because they're not our books. So.
Okay, well, I think the only way to resolve this is to see if there's a majority wish to see it. I mean, I think we have got every perfect right to see it if we wish to. They did come directly and ask us as a council if we'd like that, and when you think of the partnership agreements and things like that, they all provide us with their financial, mainly to staff, and we do get a breakdown. We can ask for it if we wish to. So I'm sure there's nothing that's hidden or of a concern. So I'm happy to put a motion. You might like to help me word it, Jeff, just to the effect perhaps that we ask the Crankworks, is it Crankworks Limited or mountain bike events, thank you Dave, if we could have a full record of their financial report to be held in confidence at the next operations and monitoring meeting. Is that enough? All right. All right, I'll move that. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I did ask for help with the wording, so we'll change it to their annual report. So we're happy with that? Okay, yes. All right, I think Councillor Srank seconded that. I think she's happy with that. Yes. Councillor Sturt. Absolutely not, because we've already agreed to the underwrite, so that's not a question. We did that some time ago. It's just, yeah. All right, so has that been put up there, Hilda? Is asked to provide a formal copy, of their report once it is to be completed, to be accepted in confidential. I think that would be public. Oh, will be public. Oh, yeah. Okay. Once it is completed. Okay. Yeah.
Madam Chair, the shareholder agreement requires that we hold an AGM within 60 days of the end of the financial year. It escapes me right now, but we have set a date for the AGM.
Right.
But that is the figure that you saw today, $38,630, is the loss made on the 2016 event that will go in the annual report. It's an interim figure with more revenue to come, etc.
Okay. All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right, so can someone move that we go into public excluded, please? I've already outlined the reasons. Moved Mr Waru, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay.
Minutes show that I didn't participate in the last vote.